far beyond Earth, in the cold and endless darkness of space. The Zorith Empire ruled with fear. They controlled many planets across many galaxies. Their ships were larger than cities, and their armies were known for leaving nothing behind. Where the Zorith Empire arrived, silence followed. They believed only strong civilizations deserved to live. Weak worlds were either conquered or destroyed. Mercy was seen as weakness, and kindness was considered foolish. For thousands of years, this belief had shaped their empire. At the center of their power stood the Great Council of Zorith. 12 rulers sat in a giant chamber made of black metal and glowing red crystal. Each one had led wars that changed entire star systems. Each one believed emotions made leaders weak on this day. A new planet was being discussed: Earth. A small blue world on the edge of a quiet galaxy. A young planet with young people called humans. The Council had watched Earth for many years. They had studied human history, their wars, their inventions, and their dreams. They saw a species full of contradictions. Humans fought each other often, yet they also protected each other. They built weapons, but they also built hospitals. They destroyed nature, but they also tried to save it. To the Council, this made humans dangerous. They are unstable, one ruler said. They are emotional and divided, said another. They will become a threat if allowed to grow, said the third. At the center of the chamber stood Supreme Commander Varex. He was the most feared warrior in the Empire. Tall, silent, and covered in dark silver armor. His face showed no emotion, and his eyes looked as cold as deep space. He had ended rebellions, destroyed fleets, and conquered worlds without hesitation. He believed only one thing mattered: strength. The High Chancellor looked down at him from the Council throne. "Commander Varex," he said, "you will travel to Earth. You will observe humanity closely. If they are worthy, they may live. If they are weak, you will erase them." The room became silent. For Varex, this was not a difficult mission. He had judged many worlds before. Most failed. He bowed his head. "It will be done," he said, far away on Earth. Life continued without knowing what was coming. Children walked to school. People rushed to work. Families ate dinner together. Cities were full of noise, light, and movement. No one knew that somewhere above the stars, their future was being decided. Commander Varex entered his flagship, the Silent Judgment. It was one of the deadliest ships ever built, dark, massive, and shaped like a blade cutting through space. As the ship moved toward Earth, his officers prepared reports about humanity. One officer stepped forward. "Commander, humans are still technologically behind. They have not fully united as one world. Their military power is limited compared to ours." Varex nodded. "As expected," he said. Another officer added, "There is no need for a long observation. We can begin planetary cleansing immediately." Many officers agreed. To them, Earth was just another weak world waiting to disappear. But before Varex could respond, an alarm suddenly filled the bridge. A smaller ship had entered nearby space. It was not military. It had no weapons. The officer checked the signal and looked confused. "It is a human vessel," he said. "A civilian rescue ship." Varex turned toward the main screen. "Rescue ship?" he asked. "Yes, Commander. There was an explosion on a mining colony near the border zone. Several alien workers are trapped there. This human ship is carrying medical teams and supplies." Varex frowned. "Are those aliens allies of Earth?" The officer checked again. "No, Commander. Most of them are from species with no connection to humans. Some even fought against human colonies in the past." The bridge became quiet. Varex stared at the screen as the small ship moved deeper into dangerous territory. It made no sense. Why would humans risk their lives for strangers? Why would they enter a deadly zone without weapons? Why would they help former enemies? This was not strength. This was foolishness, or perhaps something else. On the screen, human doctors moved quickly through the ship, preparing for rescue. No fear, no hesitation. They were ready to die for lives that were not their own. Varex watched in silence for the first time in many years. He felt something unfamiliar, curiosity. He had seen bravery before. But bravery in war was common. This was different. This was kindness without reward. The officer spoke again. "Commander, should we stop them?" Varex did not answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the human ship. Then he said quietly, "No. Let them continue." The officers looked surprised. But no one questioned him as the rescue ship disappeared into the darkness. Commander Varex stood still. The mission to judge Earth had only just begun. But already, the planet had done something unexpected. It had made the strongest warrior in the Zoroth Empire ask a question he had never asked before. What if strength was not the greatest power in the universe? And what if humanity knew something the Empire had forgotten? Commander Varex stood silently on the bridge of the silent judgment, his cold eyes fixed on the screen before him. The small human rescue ship moved deeper into the danger zone near the destroyed mining colony. It looked fragile compared to the giant Zoroth warship, almost like a small light entering a storm. His officers still did not understand. "Commander," one officer said carefully, "those humans are entering unstable territory. Radiation levels are rising, and pirate ships have been seen nearby. There is a high chance they will not return." Varex crossed his arms behind his back. "And yet they continue," he said. The officer lowered his head. "Yes." "Commander," Varex said nothing more. But his mind was not calm. He had judged many species before. Most protected only their own people. Most only acted when there was profit, power, or survival involved. But these humans were different. They were going to save strangers, even enemies. He wanted to understand why. "Prepare a shadow route," Varex ordered. "We will observe them closely." His officers looked surprised. "You wish to follow them personally?" "Yes," Varex replied. "I want to see this myself, far ahead." The human ship Hope of Dawn entered the broken remains of the mining colony. The colony had once been built inside a moon rich with rare crystals. Now it was a field of floating metal, fire, and silence. Captain Elena Carter stood on the command deck. She was calm, focused, and carried the tired strength of someone who had seen too much pain, but refused to stop helping. She was not a soldier. She was a rescue captain. Her crew trusted her because she always chose people first. A young crew member rushed to her side. "Captain, life signs confirmed. 37 survivors trapped in Section 4. Oxygen is failing fast." Elena nodded. "Prepare the medical team." "We go in now." Another crew member looked worried. "Captain, we also detected Draken soldiers among the survivors." The room became tense. Everyone knew the Drakens, a violent alien race that had attacked human trade stations years ago. Many humans had lost family because of them. One crew member spoke with anger. "They were our enemies. Why should we risk our lives for them?" Another nodded. "If we delay, we may lose our own people too." Elena looked at her team, her voice calm but strong. "Because trapped people are not enemies. They are people who need help." Silence filled the room. She stepped closer. "If kindness only exists for friends, then it is not kindness. We are here to save lives, not choose whose life matters." No one argued after that. Even those who disagreed respected her. The rescue team entered the damaged station. Metal walls were broken, smoke filled the air, and emergency lights flashed red through the darkness. The station felt like it was dying one breath at a time. Elena moved first, leading the team. They found injured workers under broken machines, frightened children hiding in storage rooms, and wounded guards barely alive. Then they found the Draken soldiers, large, armored, and badly injured. One of them reached weakly for a weapon, but had no strength left. A human medic froze. Elena stepped forward slowly. "No fighting," she said. "We came to help." The Draken soldier stared at her with confusion. He had expected fear. Hatred, maybe revenge, not help, slowly. He lowered his hand, behind them, hidden in deep space. Commander Varex watched every second through surveillance drones. He listened to every word, especially Elena's words. If kindness only exists for friends, then it is not kindness. He repeated this sentence in his mind. It sounded weak, but somehow it felt stronger than every speech he had heard in the Zoreth Council. His officer beside him spoke. This human captain is making a mistake. Mercy toward enemies creates future threats. Varex did not answer immediately. On the screen, he watched Elena helping a wounded Draken child breathe through an oxygen mask. Her hands did not shake. Her face showed no hate, only determination. Finally, Varex spoke. Or perhaps mercy creates something stronger than fear. The officer looked shocked, but stayed silent. Hours passed. The human crew worked without rest. They carried survivors, repaired life support, and gave away their own emergency oxygen when supplies became low. One human engineer even stayed behind to fix a collapsing reactor so others could escape. He knew he might not survive, but he stayed anyway. Varex watched that too. This was not logic, this was sacrifice, and sacrifice for strangers made no sense in the Zoreth way of thinking. Yet here it was, real, powerful, human. As the final rescue shuttle prepared to leave, Elena stood near the loading gate. Counting survivors, 37 saved, including the Drakens. One small Draken child looked back at her before entering the shuttle. In broken human language he whispered, "Why, help us." Elena smiled softly. "Because one day, maybe someone will help us too." The child nodded slowly. The rescue mission should have changed nothing. At least that was what Commander Varex told himself. He stood alone inside the command chamber of the Silent Judgment, staring at the stars outside the great window. The human ship had returned safely to Earth, and the survivors were alive because of them. In the Zoreth Empire, such an action meant nothing. Saving enemies was considered weakness. Mercy was a flaw, compassion was dangerous, and yet, Varex could not forget what he had seen. Captain Elena risking her life for strangers. Her crew sharing oxygen with wounded enemies. A child asking why humans would help those who once caused them pain. The answer still echoed in his mind. Because one day, maybe someone will help us too. It made no sense, but somehow it felt true. Before he could think further, the bridge alarm sounded sharply. A transmission from the Zoreth Council. The giant hologram of the High Chancellor appeared above the center platform. The other council members stood behind him like silent shadows. "Commander Varex," the Chancellor said. "Your report on Earth is delayed." Varex stood straight. "I am still observing humanity," he replied. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "You have seen enough. Humans are unstable, divided, and emotional. They will become a threat if allowed to grow." Another council member stepped forward. "We require final judgment." The room felt colder. Varex knew what they wanted, permission to destroy Earth. But for the first time in his life, he hesitated. The Chancellor noticed. His voice became harder. "Commander, has your loyalty weakened?" Varex answered carefully, "No, Chancellor. But Earth deserves one final test." The council became silent. Varex continued, "If humans are truly dangerous, let them reveal it themselves, create pressure, fear, and crisis. If they turn against each other, they are unworthy. If they rise above it, then perhaps they deserve survival." The council members exchanged looks. Finally, the Chancellor spoke. "Very well, one final test, but if they fail, Earth will burn." The transmission ended. Varex remained still. He had just delayed destruction. But he had also placed humanity in danger, and he hated himself for it. Far below, Earth moved through an ordinary morning. People walked through crowded streets. Children laughed on their way to school. Shop owners opened their doors. Hospitals prepared for another busy day. No one knew a test had begun, high above the planet. Hidden Zorith satellites activated. Their purpose was simple: create controlled disaster. Within hours, powerful storms formed over one of Earth's largest coastal cities. Strange lightning filled the sky, communication towers failed. Power systems collapsed. At first, people thought it was a natural storm. Then things became worse. Flood warnings spread. Food deliveries stopped, roads were blocked. Hospitals lost backup systems. Fear moved faster than the storm itself. News channels showed panic everywhere, stores filled with desperate people. Some tried to take more than they needed. Others feared the city would fall into chaos from orbit. The council watched through hidden observation systems. One council member smiled coldly. "Now we will see their true nature." Commander Varex stood beside the screen in silence. He feared they were right. Fear often revealed the worst in people. He had seen entire civilizations destroy themselves when survival became uncertain. Maybe humans would be no different, but then something unexpected happened. In one neighborhood, when food supplies ran low, families began sharing what little they had. One old woman gave her last bread to children she did not know. At a hospital, doctors continued working without power, using flashlights and old machines to keep patients alive. A group of young people formed rescue teams using small boats to help trapped families escape flood zones. Strangers opened their homes to people with nowhere to go. A restaurant owner cooked free meals for anyone who arrived hungry. Police officers stayed at their posts for 2 days without rest. A firefighter ran back into a collapsing building. Not for reward, but because someone was still inside. Again and again, Varex watched people choose others over themselves. Yes, there were moments of fear. Some people acted selfishly, but they were not the majority. Most chose something else: unity. The council grew restless. "This is temporary," one ruler said. "Wait longer. Fear will break them." But Varex kept watching. And the longer he watched, the clearer it became. Humans were not strong because they were perfect. They were strong because even in fear, they still reached for kindness. That was something the Zorith Empire had forgotten long ago. Late that night, Varex viewed one final scene. A young boy stood outside in the heavy rain. Holding an umbrella over an injured stray dog, he was cold, tired, and shaking. But he refused to leave the animal alone. There was no audience. No reward, no glory, only simple kindness. Varex stared at the screen for a long time. He had destroyed planets for being weak. But now he wondered if true weakness was something else. A civilization without compassion. An empire without mercy. His empire, for the first time. Commander Varex felt shame, not for disobeying orders, but for obeying them for so long. He looked down at Earth. The small blue world the council wanted erased. And quietly to no one, he said, "They are stronger than we are." The storm over Earth did not end quickly. For 3 long days, the sky remained dark. Heavy clouds covered the sun, and cold rain flooded streets and homes. Power was still failing in many areas, and emergency teams were working without rest, from orbit, hidden behind the moon. Commander Varex watched everything from the silent judgment. Every report made the same truth clearer. Humans were suffering, but they were not breaking. The Zorith Council had expected violence, panic, and collapse. Instead, they saw doctors sleeping on hospital floors so they could wake faster for the next patient. They saw strangers carrying food through dangerous floodwater. They saw people protecting each other even when they had little left for themselves. Varex felt something he had never respected before. Admiration, but the council was losing patience. A direct transmission appeared again. The High Chancellor's face filled the command screen. "Commander Varex, enough observation. The test is complete. Earth should have fallen into chaos. But instead they continue to resist. This proves they are dangerous." "Not worthy." Varex's jaw tightened. "They are not dangerous because they care for each other," he said. They are strong because they do. The chamber behind the Chancellor became silent. No one on the council expected him to speak that way. The Chancellor's voice turned cold. "Be careful, Commander." "You speak like one of them," Varex answered without fear. "Perhaps that is because I am beginning to understand them." The transmission ended immediately. The officers on the bridge said nothing. No one wanted to be near the silence that followed. Varex knew the truth now. The council would not wait much longer. If he failed to obey, they would send the Imperial fleet, and Earth would burn before he could decide his next move. Another emergency alert appeared. A large building in the center of the storm-hit city had collapsed. Fire spread through the broken structure, and rescue teams were delayed by blocked roads. Civilian reports were chaotic. People were trapped inside. Among them was a child. The image from the emergency feed showed flames rising into the black sky. People were screaming. Firefighters were trying to enter, but parts of the building were still falling. One officer beside Varex spoke. "This does not concern us, Commander." But Varex was already moving. He removed part of his battle armor and prepared a smaller stealth transport. The officer looked shocked. "You are leaving the ship?" "Yes," Varex said. "For one human child?" Varex stopped at the doorway and looked back. "For one life," then he left. The transport entered Earth's atmosphere silently through the storm clouds. Rain hit the metal like bullets. Lightning flashed around him, but Varex did not slow down. He landed near the burning building where chaos ruled the streets. Humans ran in every direction. Emergency sirens filled the air. Smoke made breathing difficult, even for him. For the first time, Commander Varex stood openly on Earth. No battlefield, no army. Only fire, fear, and one choice, a firefighter shouted. "There is still a girl trapped on the 3rd floor. But the stairs are gone." Varex looked up, through broken glass and smoke. He could see movement, a small figure near the window. Without another word, he moved. The crowd watched in shock as the tall, armored stranger entered the flames. Inside, the heat was violent. Metal groaned above him, and burning wood crashed around his path. He forced open blocked doors with his bare hands, pushed through smoke, and climbed broken floors toward the trapped child. At last he found her, a little girl, no older than 7. Hiding under a fallen desk, coughing and crying but still holding a small stuffed animal tightly in her arms. When she saw him, she froze. Varex expected fear. He had spent his life being feared. But instead, the girl simply whispered, "Are you here to help me?" The question hit harder than any weapon. He knelt carefully. "Yes," he said quietly. She reached for his hand without hesitation. No fear, no hatred, only trust. He lifted her into his arms and turned back toward the fire. The building shook violently. Part of the ceiling collapsed behind them, outside. People shouted as they saw movement near the window. Varex broke through falling debris and carried the child through the flames. Just as part of the structure collapsed behind him, the crowd erupted in shocked silence. Rain hit the fire, turning smoke into steam. He placed the girl safely on the ground where medics rushed forward, before they took her away. Rain still fell over the city as Commander Varex returned to the silent judgment. The fire behind him had been extinguished, the little girl was safe, and the storm over Earth was slowly beginning to weaken. But inside him, another storm had already begun. He stood alone in the transport bay, staring at his own reflection in the dark metal walls. For years he had seen only a soldier, a weapon built for obedience, a commander who followed orders without question. Now, for the first time, he saw something else. A man who had been wrong. The words of the little girl still echoed in his mind. "Thank you, mister." No one in the Zoroth Empire had ever thanked him for mercy, because mercy did not exist there, but on Earth. One small human child had changed everything with simple trust. An officer entered carefully. "Commander." The Council is demanding immediate contact. Varex did not move. He already knew why. The High Chancellor appeared on the command bridge, surrounded by the 12 rulers of the Great Council. Their faces were cold, their silence dangerous. The Chancellor spoke first. You disobeyed protocol. You revealed yourself on Earth. You interfered directly. Varex stood tall. Yes, no excuse, no fear. The council members whispered among themselves. One of them stepped forward. The final judgment is clear. Humanity has infected your thinking. Your loyalty is compromised, another added. You were sent to judge them, not admire them. Varex's voice remained calm. I judged them, and I found strength where we call weakness. Compassion is not failure. Mercy is not weakness. The entire chamber froze. No one had spoken against the council like this in centuries. The Chancellor's eyes burned with anger. You speak like a traitor, Varex answered. Then perhaps the Empire has forgotten what strength truly is. Silence. Then the Chancellor gave the final order. Commander Varex, you are stripped of rank. Your command is removed, and Earth will be destroyed immediately. A red warning signal filled the ship. From deep space, the Zoroth Imperial fleet had entered the solar system. Thousands of warships, dark as night, appearing like shadows around the stars. Their purpose was simple, total planetary destruction. Even Varex's officers looked shaken. No human defense could stop that fleet. Earth would not survive. The Chancellor's final words echoed through the bridge. You may watch the planet you chose burn. The transmission ended. Silence followed. Every officer on the silent judgment waited. Would Varex surrender? Would he obey? Or would he do the impossible? Varex looked at the stars, then at the image of Earth turning quietly below. He remembered Captain Elena saving enemies, the boy protecting the stray dog in the storm, the doctors working without sleep, the little girl smiling through smoke and fire. Humanity was imperfect, but they were worth protecting. He turned slowly toward his crew. For years, we believed fear created order. We believed power without compassion was strength. He stepped forward, his voice stronger now. But I have seen the truth. A civilization is not measured by how many worlds it conquers. It is measured by what it chooses to protect. Some officers looked uncertain. Some angry. One shouted, "You would betray the Empire for humans?" Varex looked directly at him. "No, I would betray cruelty for what is right." The room remained silent. Then his oldest officer, General Kale, stepped forward. He had served beside Varex for decades. If you fight the Empire, there is no return. We will be hunted forever. Varex nodded. I know. Kale studied him for a long moment, then slowly placed his hand over his chest in warrior salute. Then I stand with you, one by one. Others followed, not all. Some officers refused and left, calling him a traitor, but many stayed, not because they loved humans, but because they trusted the commander who had never lied to them. The silent judgment changed course. Its weapons turned not toward Earth, but toward the approaching Imperial fleet. At the same time, emergency signals reached Earth's Defense Command. Captain Elena Carter stood in the command center, staring at the impossible readings. Thousands of alien warships surrounding the planet. Her voice was quiet. This is the end. Human governments activated every defense they had. But everyone knew the truth. It would not be enough. Then a second signal appeared, unexpected. A Zoroth flagship moving into defensive position above Earth. The name appeared on screen, the Silent Judgment. Elena stared in disbelief. Commander Varex's image appeared in a secure transmission. For the first time, there was no distance between them. Only honesty. The Empire is coming, he said. They will destroy your world, Elena answered carefully. And you? Varex looked at Earth behind her screen. I was sent here to judge humanity. Instead, humanity judged me, he paused. And I choose your side, outside the planet. Stars disappeared behind warships. the Imperial fleet prepared for attack. But now, between Earth and destruction, stood the one commander they trusted most. Commander Varex, no longer the Empire's greatest weapon, but Earth's first alien defender. Space above Earth had never felt so heavy. Not because of gravity, but because of fear. The Imperial fleet of the Zoroth Empire now filled the sky like a silent death. Thousands of massive warships formed perfect lines around the planet. Their dark metal bodies blocked the stars, turning space into a shadowed cage on Earth. People looked up in confusion. Some saw strange lights in the sky. Some heard emergency broadcasts. Some simply stood in silence, not understanding what was happening. But deep down, everyone felt the same thing. Something terrible was coming inside the silent judgment. Commander Varex stood at the front of the bridge. Behind him, his loyal officers prepared for war. Some were afraid, some were calm, but all of them understood one truth. This battle could not be won with strength alone. Across the command channel, Captain Elena Carter's voice came through. Varex, there are too many ships. We cannot defend Earth against this. Varex did not look away from the screen. I know. A pause followed. Elena's voice became softer. Then why are you here? For a moment, Varex said nothing. The question was simple, but the answer carried everything he had become. He finally replied, because for the first time in my life, I am not here to destroy. On the bridge of the Imperial fleet, the Zoroth High Chancellor raised his hand. His voice echoed across all channels. Earth has been judged. Begin cleansing. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. And then the first wave of destruction began. Energy cannons fired from multiple ships. Bright beams of death cut through space toward Earth. But before they could reach the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. The silent judgment moved. It did not retreat. It did not surrender. It placed itself directly between Earth and the incoming fire. Massive shields activated, glowing like a protective wall across the planet's orbit. The first wave of energy struck. Explosions lit up space, shaking the entire structure of the ship. Warning alarms screamed across every corridor inside. Officers held onto control panels as the impact rattled the vessel, shields holding at 60%. One shouted, "Second wave incoming." Varex stood unmoving. "Divert all power to defense," he ordered calmly. Behind him, General Kale spoke. "If this continues, the ship will not survive," Varex replied. "Then it will not survive." Another wave of attacks came from the Imperial fleet. Stronger than before, entire sections of space lit up like burning stars. On Earth, people finally saw it clearly, a giant war unfolding above their world. And in the middle of it, one ship standing alone against an empire. Captain Elena watched from Earth's command center. Her hands clenched tightly. "This is suicide." Someone whispered, but Elena shook her head slowly. "No. This is choice." Back in orbit, Varex activated a direct channel to the Imperial fleet. His voice echoed across every Zoroth ship. "I was sent to judge Earth," he said. "But I have found something you have forgotten," the Chancellor responded coldly. "Speak your final words, traitor." Varex looked at the burning lines of energy in space. "Strength without compassion is not strength. It is destruction without purpose." A pause followed. Then he continued, "I will not let you erase them." The Chancellor gave a silent signal. The full Imperial fleet prepared its final attack. This time, the energy output was enough to destroy not just Earth, but the entire defensive ship in front of it. Varex knew this. Everyone knew this. General Kale stepped forward. "This is the end, Commander." Varex nodded. "Yes," Kale asked quietly. "Was it worth it?" Varex looked at Earth one last time. He saw cities, lights, movement, life. He remembered a child saying thank you. He remembered humans helping enemies without reason. And he answered, yes. The final attack began. A massive beam of concentrated energy fired from the Imperial flagship directly toward Earth. Time seemed to slow. The silent judgment moved instantly. It rotated its entire structure, absorbing the full impact at its core shields. The explosion was enormous. Space itself shook inside the ship. Systems began failing one by one. Power flickered. Metal groaned. Warning lights filled every corridor. But the shield held just long enough. Varex gave the final order. Prepare counterstrike. Kale hesitated. This will destroy us too, Varex replied quietly. Then let it be remembered that we chose to protect instead of conquer all remaining weapons of the silent judgment fired at the Imperial command network. Not to destroy planets, but to break control systems. To disable coordination. To give Earth a chance. The battlefield turned chaotic. Zoroth fleets lost formation as their command signals broke apart. For the first time in centuries, the Imperial Empire was not unified. It was uncertain inside the collapsing bridge. Alarms screamed louder. Kale looked at Varex. Commanders do not die like this. Varex gave a small. Space above Earth was no longer silent, but it was no longer fully a battlefield either. The Imperial fleet of the Zoroth Empire, once perfectly unified, was now breaking apart in confusion. Their command signals had been disrupted, their formations scattered, and their certainty shaken for the first time in centuries. Above the blue planet, the silent judgment floated like a wounded guardian. Its massive structure was damaged, its shields weakened, and its systems failing in slow waves of red warnings. But it still stood between Earth and destruction. Inside the bridge, silence filled the air. The kind of silence that comes after something too large to understand has just changed forever. Commander Varex stood at the center, his armor cracked, his breathing steady but heavier than before. Around him, his remaining officers held their stations. Injured but alive, General Kale spoke quietly. The Imperial fleet is retreating. Not fully, but they are no longer coordinated, another officer added. Their fear has replaced their order. That statement alone was something no Zoroth had ever heard before. Fear in the Empire was not supposed to exist in command structures. Yet now it spread through their once perfect war machine. On Earth, people watched the sky with disbelief. The massive shadow of warships slowly pulling back. Explosions fading, silence returning bit by bit. But no one dared to believe it was over. In Earth's command center, Captain Elena Carter stood frozen. Watching live orbital feeds, her voice was low. Are they leaving? An analyst beside her shook his head. No. They are not leaving. They are breaking. Elena turned toward the screen showing the silent judgment. And there he was, Commander Varex, still standing. Still protecting Earth. A transmission opened directly from his ship. His voice was calmer now, but carried exhaustion that no one had heard before. The Imperial fleet is no longer unified, but this is not victory. Not yet. Elena stepped closer to the console. What happens now? Varex looked at the broken stars outside his window. Now they decide what kind of empire they want to be. A pause followed. Then Elena asked quietly, "And you?" For a moment, Varex did not answer. He looked at the damaged bridge, at his surviving crew, at the planet they had chosen to protect. Then he said, "I have already chosen, outside." The Imperial fleet slowly began to withdraw deeper into space, not defeated but uncertain. A rare condition for something that had ruled the galaxy through fear alone. But one ship did not retreat. The flagship of the Zoroth Empire, it remained in position. And its voice came once more, the High Chancellor. "This rebellion ends now, Varex. You have turned your back on everything we built. You have betrayed the Empire for primitives," Varex replied without anger. "I did not betray the Empire. I saved it from itself." The Chancellor's voice became colder. "You are nothing now, Commander. Just a man standing between extinction and order." Varex looked at Earth. Cities were still lit, people were still watching the sky. Unaware of how close they had come to being erased, he spoke softly. "Then I will stand here as long as I am needed." The Chancellor gave the final order. "Destroy the silent judgment." A massive wave of concentrated energy gathered from multiple flagship weapons. Stronger than anything seen before. A final attempt to erase both Earth and its protector in one strike. On the bridge, alarms screamed. Final impact incoming. General Kale looked at varex. "This is it," varex nodded. Yes, no fear, only acceptance. But before the impact reached them, something unexpected happened. Multiple Zorath ships broke formation and positioned themselves between the attack and the silent judgment. They were not Earth ships, they were Zorath vessels. Confused voices filled the channel. "We refuse the order. This attack is no longer justified. Enough destruction." The Imperial fleet, once absolute, was now divided against itself. For the first time in Zorath history, obedience was breaking. The Chancellor shouted in rage, "Traitors!" But it was too late. The attack lost coordination. Energy beams collided mid-space, and the final strike collapsed into chaos. The silent judgment survived. Barely, inside, systems failed one by one, and the ship began to drift slowly. General Kale spoke. "We are still alive." Varex looked at the fading battlefield, not because we are strong, but because they hesitated. He turned toward Earth one last time. And then something changed. A new transmission appeared from Earth. Not military, not official, it was civilian. Captain Elena's voice came through, softer than before. "You saved us." Varex replied simply, "No. I only gave you time to save yourselves." A long silence followed. Then Elena said, "What will you do now?" Varex looked at his broken ship, his fractured empire, and the planet he had once been sent to destroy, and he answered, "I will no longer serve an empire built on fear." He paused. "I will stand with those who choose life on Earth." People began to understand slowly. The war was not won by destruction, but by a choice. A choice made by one commander who refused to follow orders. Days later, the Imperial fleet withdrew further into deep space. The Council fractured into internal conflict, and for the first time, the Zorath Empire was no longer one voice. Earth survived. Not because it was the strongest planet in the galaxy, but because someone from the strongest empire chose to protect it. On Earth, stories began to spread. Of the alien commander who stood between them and extinction. Of the warrior who learned compassion. Of the enemy who became a shield. In time, a memorial was built in orbit, not for war, but for understanding. And Commander Varex, no longer a soldier of the Empire, stood there once more, looking at Earth, not as a target, but as a home worth protecting, because in the end, he did not just learn about humanity, he became part of its meaning.